Hello, my friends. Pearlo Wisdom here from RNJ Media, who has reached out to me to have a show this coming season called Puck in Deep. The owner, though, is a little under the weather, and we're a little bit delayed getting the YouTube channel up and the website up and all that, but be looking out for it because it's going to be excellent, I assure you. And today we're going to be looking at the Detroit Red Wings and their preseason outlook for how they're going to do in the season, how their future looks, and a little bit of a prediction to go with it as well. I did a video not too long ago. I did San Jose, I've done Seattle, and I also did Colorado and Columbus, which you can find at the Ice Guys on their Patreon, who is a group that I'm part of, that were voted best betting podcast in North America last year. Right now they did 32 teams in 32 days, and I did 2 of them. So you can check out my Columbus and my Colorado there. And you can check out Detroit right now. We're going to be looking at the lineups as far as how they are projected on Puckpedia. We're going to look at each players, how they stack up and how they did this year, or how they may do this year, how they did last year, and how the team has been improving under the ISA plan. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of unrest, it seems, in Detroit about the ISA plan and how they're moving on, and I get it because it's been a long rebuild for sure. But last year they made some improvements. This year they've added a few players, so let's get into the lineup and how they may do. We'll go to Puckpedia right now. Starting with the first line, which is pretty obvious. We'll start with the obvious ones. Larkin and Lucas Raymond. Dylan Larkin, I've heard a lot of fans say that he's not a true number one, and we need a true number one. Dylan Larkin, people don't pay attention to often with Dylan Larkin, is just how good this guy is as a 3-zone defensive player. And you're going to hear me say this a lot because it's an important part of hockey today to be able to be a player that can do what Dylan Larkin does. 30 goals last year, 70 points. He is a guy that can play into a coach's system extremely well. He's very seldom out of position. He's got tons of heart. Difficult guy to play against, although he's not huge and he's not overly physical. His motor never stops running. I absolutely love him. I do think he's a number one center and a guy that you can build around. Yeah, he's not your elite offensive guy like McDavid or Draisaitl, but he's extremely serviceable in the role as a number one center on this team, or any team for that matter. Lucas Raymond, last year was a boom. And now, talking about Lucas Raymond, you can't talk about Lucas Raymond or the next player or Alex DeBrincat, which I'll get to later, without talking about Jamie McClellan. Jamie McClellan is an awesome coach. He's been an awesome coach for a long time. And I know he hasn't had all that much success in the playoffs, but I live in Edmonton, and when he was a coach in Edmonton, he took a team that wasn't very good, and he built a structure and defensive structure to that team really, really quick. Absolutely fantastic at motivating players to play responsible hockey in all 3 zones, which is so important in the league today. If you look at the Florida Panthers, that is their number one reason why that team is so good. Their compete level and many other things as well. But their 3-zone defensive play by their top 9 forwards is probably the best we have seen since back when LA was winning cups. Absolutely fantastic. And it's the way teams win in the NHL now, with all the talent that's out there, without the knowledge that's out there about how to best play the game, how to best give yourself chances to not only score but also prevent scoring. Now, one player that they have got, and I didn't get into Lucas Raymond enough, he did exceptionally well when McClellan came in. He's always been fairly responsible that way, probably learning a lot from Dylan Larkin. But he went through the roof last year when McClellan came in, and has been is well above average in that area, plus an 80-point player, and he's only 23 years old. There's still plenty of upside here. This first line is fine. The interesting move was bringing in James Van Riemsdyk. And I'm going to talk about the ISA plan all through here, where I've had the same difficulties as a lot of Detroit fans have had with it. Bringing in James Van Riemsdyk, he's only $1 million player, and if we're going to put him on the top line here, it's going to be in a very reduced role, I would imagine. The thing is, Detroit does have 11 point some million to play with, and it's very possible that there just wasn't anybody else available out there. Now, that being said, James Van Riemsdyk is a very smart player. He's really good in front of the net. He's got good size at 6'3", 200, which would really work well with Larkin and Raymond. Go up and down the wing, let Larkin and Raymond do most of the offensive play driving, which, by the way, I didn't mention they're both extremely good at. And just be there where you need to be there. Get the pucks out of the corners when you can use your size, get in front of the net, all of that. And I think that's what the plan is here with James. Probably won't be playing too much power play or anything like that. They may switch things up when they need a goal and put the next guy I'm going to talk about up on that line to produce offense. But in 5-on-5 in the regular season, until they can find a replacement, I think he fills in not too bad there, actually. He's not all that great defensively, but he's not terrible. He's not all that great of a play driver, but he's not terrible. He has some offensive skills, and he seems to be able to work into lineups and do the best he can with what he has to be a player that's not going to hurt you and can produce a little offense at 36 points last year with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Alex DeBrincat is the next one, where a player that we'll get into on the second line. That's DeBrincat, Casper, and Kane. This is another McClellan gem here, I think. DeBrincat is a player that has never been a good three-zone defensive player. He's been a guy that I think coaches have just basically allowed him to play a high-risk offensive hockey all over the ice. Fly the zone in the defensive zone if necessary. Try to score in times when maybe it might be lower risk times to score, but just trying to get as much offense out of them as they possibly can. As a coach, I could kind of see that, but McClellan sees somebody doing that and seeing the value in that in an Alex DeBrincat. But McClellan is a guy that expects all of his players to do their best at playing the system. It has that expectation for every player, and if you're not going to fit into it, or if you refuse to fit into it, you're probably going to move on. And Alex DeBrincat last year did it. He did it. He listened, and he was about a 50% above replacement defensive player, which is not something that he has ever done. So you can say McClellan got it out of him, or he was always coachable and nobody tried it. I don't know, but he was excellent for him last. All you need from a guy like that has that kind of offense. I mean, I love this kid. He's not really a kid. He's 27 years old, but to me, he's like a kid. When he comes across the neutral zone, and he just shoots when nobody's expecting it and pick corners and stuff like that. When he's really feeling it, this guy's shot is freaking unbelievable. I love him. Very intelligent offensive player. But when you can add the wrinkle of being responsible in all three zones, his value goes up immensely. And the value to the team goes up immensely. And the team value goes up immensely. Patrick Kane, also on this line, is a guy that has struggled with hip injuries and before he had his hip injury, it was almost obvious that the coach was saying, "Look, dude, we just use your offense. We'll try to keep you out of the defensive zone as much as you possibly can. I literally saw him jump on the bench to avoid going in the defensive zone and make changes. And with the type of injury he had at that time, I can understand it. He never was going to be totally that guy, but we know what he is. He still has it. He still has the amazing passing hands and offensive mind, and just a brilliant offensive player. Will always be that as long as his legs hold up. He's come down a bit, but he's 37 years old. But last year, he bought in too. He bought in. He actually didn't have a bad year defensively last year. As when McClellan came in, his analytics don't really show well up until McClellan came. But when McClellan came, he actually bought in. Not too shabby for a guy who probably is on his last legs here. He bought in for the team. And when you see your veterans doing stuff like that, it bodes well for the future of this franchise. And Marco Casper, at 21 years old, this kid's got so much more to give. I mean, I'm not saying that he's not good. He's good right now. As a second-line center, he is above average in all areas pretty much. Except for passing, he's not a great passer. He's more of a go to the spots and shoot guy. But all over the ice, in all three zones, this kid has got it. Very high IQ, and I think this line is just fine, especially for the regular season. Not an above average top six. And when we're talking about a Toronto team that may be regressing a little bit, and if you listen to my Montreal one, I actually did Montreal already. You could see some regression from them, my friends. You might want to go check out that video. Here, though, we get down to the top 12, and I said I'm going to be talking about the Isa plan and where I've had some confusion as to what he was thinking with some of the moves he made. I think a lot of the moves he made had more to do with off the ice than on the ice. And Andrew Kopp, who they gave a contract to, 4 years ago now it would be. On the ice, Andrew Kopp was never really that good. He was more of a fourth liner. He's improved to maybe like a weak third liner. He has some offensive skills. He's not bad offensively. I mean, he's an NHL player, but he's not a guy that I would be giving 5.6 to, I'll tell you that. But one thing he is he's a Michigan boy. And I think a lot of the reason why, I could be wrong, I don't know, I don't talk to Stevie Yzerman, he doesn't call me up every day, but he's a heart and soul, loyal type player. He actually wanted to play for Detroit and nobody else. And I think that part of the reason why Yzerman brought him in was for that Detroit Red Wings pride. And to have that energy go through the room. And to have a guy that really buys into just being a Detroit Red Wing. When there's value in that when you're building a team. But on the ice, he's pretty meh. Not really a great play driver, not really a good three-zone guy. He's just kind of meh. JT Compher, on the other hand, is very good three-zone defensive player. Excellent, not a bad third liner at all. Well above average. Plays against fairly top competition. He can play against average competition very, very well. I would have him as a third-line center, no problems. In fact, if Detroit's right out of it, I'd be calling Yzerman and seeing if he's available if I'm a team looking for a player like that. Don't mind it at all. Mason Appleton now, on the other hand, they picked him up from Winnipeg. And the interesting thing about Mason Appleton is he was always on a line with Lowry, and I believe it was Nemeshnikov, or what's the other guy's name? It'll come to me anyways. It was a very strong defensive line. But he himself is not actually a strong three-zone defensively aware player. He was more of the offensive driver on that line, and that's what he'd be on this line as well, is an offensive driver. 2 years ago, I think he had much more success putting up points and maybe they expect that him to be kind of a point producer from the third line here. We'll see how that all works out. It is an interesting pickup because when we go to the rest of the lineup here with Soderblom, Rasmussen, and Berggren, all of those guys, Rasmussen, again, is a strong defensive center if you don't give him the most elite competition. In the fourth line role, he's really good. He's big, but he doesn't use his size all that much. Mason Appleton, by the way, does add some size to the lineup, which is always good. But he doesn't use the size as much as people would like. But he does. He'll be able to wear you down with the size, and he can get into decent spots. He has an okay offensive shooting range, and he can create havoc in the offensive zone. And I think that's what this line is more for. Elmer Soderblom, sort of the same thing. Big guys. It's intimidating to see a 6'8", 247 and a 6'6", 220 guy coming at you in the defensive zone. I think this line more or less is, for the most part, is to try to keep offensive possession as much as possible. It's a weird type of way of building a lineup where your top six is probably better three-zone defensively than your bottom six, I should say. So your bottom six is going to be put on the ice in offensive situations, and your top six is going to be put on the ice in more the defensive zone situations. And hopefully you can line up your top six against some weaker competition and score some goals. And I think that's where they're going for here. Not a bad plan, especially in the regular season. Now, I talked about Jamie McClellan, and before we get into McClellan, and before we get into the defense is what I'm trying to say. I'm going to say this. Last year we saw with Montreal a team that was very similar to this. This team doesn't have as much offensive talent, but I would say it's got better overall depth all through the lineup. The overall depth all through the lineup here is pretty good. They can take advantage of a lot of teams that don't have depth in their third and fourth lines and probably score some goals all through the lineup. Not bad. But St. Louis last year didn't focus on X's and O's too much. It was more about high energy and Montreal pride and go out there and try to score for the most part. Just trying to make the playoffs was the goal last year. I think it was more about getting players confidence in scoring because they had a very young team. Go to look at it in my Montreal stuff before I go on with that. I think you're going to see this year with Jamie McClellan. Is it Jamie McClellan? Anyways, I think you're going to see that with him as well. He is the type of guy that does that. He's not only great at structure and X's and O's and building a defensive system and offensive system that works in congruence with each other. He's also a great motivator as well. And I think what we're going to see here is a lot of high energy in Detroit. One of the advantages Montreal had last year is nobody was expecting them to be as good as they were. So when they went into a lot of barns, they got their backup goaltender a lot. It was a tough year where you had the Four Nations and you had a lot of tired teams. And this year you have the Olympics as well. When Montreal came out of the gates after the Four Nations, they just went balls out, man. St. Louis had them completely prepared for just pure high-energy hockey. And a lot of the teams that were coming out the gate, they were sluggish. They weren't ready. A lot of more teams were already in a playoff spot, so they didn't have that same oomph to try to win a lot of games. And it was Montreal coming in, so they're like, maybe we'll go for a couple drinks tonight. Or, do a few things with the family before the game or stay later than they normally would. And I think you're going to see a lot of that with Detroit this year, to tell you the honest truth. I think it's going to take a while for this team to get respect in the year, especially when they go out west and play teams like Dallas, St. Louis, Edmonton, teams like that where they're like, it's just Detroit coming into town. And they come out with high energy and a much more solid defensive system that that team's used to. And before you know it, it's 3-0, and you're like, holy shit. That's what happened with Montreal. I think you could see that happen here. Getting into the Yzer plan, this is where I had a difficult time wrapping my head around it. And Rico, and you can watch me at Pearlo's NHL POW or listen to us and come talk to me if you want. We go on Spaces quite often and we talk quite a bit. And one of the things we discuss is why Stevie Yzerman would sign Ben Sherratt. Because Ben Sherratt is not a top pairing defenseman. He's been overvalued by more than just Stevie Yzerman as general managers, though. And he was overvalued here. He's an absolute anchor to Moritz Seider. I never understood how having a defenseman like Ben Sherratt being a mentor for Seider was good. Because if I'm a coach, I'm basically like, yeah, I kind of don't do what Ben did there, or there. Like he's not the highest IQ player in the world. He looks like he should be amazing. He's got speed, he's got size. He's a good skater for his size, and he has good puck skills and everything. And when he skates the puck out of the zone, you think, oh, this guy's pretty good. But the problem is he skates the puck out of the zone when he's not supposed to, when the players aren't ready, and he quite often is ahead of them, and they're going, oh, we're going this way? Okay. He's not a great passer out of the zone. He overcommits on hitting and over pinches in the offensive zone and all that kind of stuff like that. So he's not very good. I never understood it. But one thing we did come to realize is that, and what I heard is, Ben Sherratt is a gym rat and a health rat. And off the ice, for these young kids, he can really help them build up muscle. And Moritz Seider has done that. So I think that had a lot to do with it. Also, he's a physical guy that will protect his teammates, and having him out there with Moritz Seider gives Seider more room, and has him less likely to be challenged physically by a lot of by the team's bigger guys. So there is some value in all of what I just said. I don't know if it pays off when he is as poor as he is in many aspects of the game. Like, I mean, really poor. He's certainly not a top pair left winger. But anyways, they're probably going to be together again, and it's going to be probably again, Seider is going to be, it's going to be more difficult having him as a pair. But Seider himself is just absolutely beautiful. Well above average, 3-zone defensive defenseman. Nice skater, has great offensive skills, all that kind of stuff like that. Great shot, and he's growing. He's only 24. There's a lot of room. He's still going to be a lot better than he is down the road. And they have the $11.4 million cap space. Hopefully down the road they're able to get somebody a little better on the ice to help him out. But as it is what it is. Simon Edvinsson on the left side, this is a guy that down the road should be playing with Seider if they can get some more players, defensemen that can play these other roles down further in the lineup. And that combination will be absolutely exquisite. Simon Edvinsson watch out for him this year. This is the year I think you're going to see 6'6", 209. The guy can skate. He's smart. He's strong in both ends of the ice, both ends of the puck. He can do it all, to tell you the honest truth. I mean, I'm not going to put him in a Norris levels, but extremely good. Ekholm level, easy, I think. No doubt about it. Probably better. And when Seider and Edvinsson can pair up together, they're going to shut down a lot of teams. So I expect him to do very well. Now then you have Albert Johansson, who apparently Stevie Yzerman loves this guy. He's 24 years old. Analytically speaking, he's pretty meh. I don't know if he's going to break out or what have you. I mean, he's got some skills. He's a hard worker and all of that, but I really wouldn't call him a second pair guy. Playing with Edvinsson will help quite a bit to cover up his deficiencies, which are fairly many. He's got holes in his game for sure. The defense, as you can tell, I think is fairly weak. Eric Gustafsson in that third pairing role, I think that's a good pick. I mean, not pickup, but he's played there for a while. He's a good third pairing guy. Nothing wrong with him. Can skate the puck out, play on the power play a little bit. He's got skills. He learned later on in his career how to play well defensively, and he does really well, especially when you don't put him against like top competition. When you play him in a role like this, it's fantastic. But then, boom, my mind's like, what's going on with this world around us? Stevie Eisman picks up Travis Hamonic, man. Travis Hamonic, we have a thing on my show that we do. We call the reach around guys. Travis Hamonic is that. He's one of those guys that's like, how the heck does this guy continue to get ice time in the NHL and contracts over and over and over again? He's just not very good at anything. Yeah, he blocks shots and he hits, but the reason why he blocks shots and hits a lot is because he spends a lot of time on in his own zone and very little time with the puck on his stick. So when sometimes blocking shots and hitting a lot doesn't mean you're a good defenseman. It's a good thing that he does do that, because he would be absolutely diabolically horrible if he wasn't willing to block shots or add some physicality. But overall, the guy's just not good. So I don't get it, and they don't really have much to replace him with. Bernard Docker they picked up from Buffalo. He's pretty meh. Justin Holl, I mean, I think he'd actually be better than Hamonic. That's how bad I think Hamonic is. But overall, I think that defense will survive if they're going to play what I think they're going to play, the high-energy system that they're going to play. And then, of course, you have the pickup of John Gibson. And John Gibson, I watched a lot of Anaheim last year. Actually, I just watch a ton of hockey, period. I watch a divorce-worthy amount of hockey. And when he is motivated, which he had a hard time doing in Anaheim, I'll admit, or not admit, it's just true. He was very distraught that he wasn't the number one goaltender there, and the losing, I think, really crept into him quite a bit. But when, like, start of the year, when everything was, you know, there were possibilities to have a competitive team, John Gibson had some really good games. And certain times of the season when they were having on a little bit of runs and it looked like they could possibly do something, he had very good games. Did he have games where he struggled? Yeah. Most of those were later in the season when they were out again. And I think he was just distraught that Dostal was the number one, and he saw his career going away from him. And I think in Detroit, in this situation with McClellan there, that he could hit it out of the park this year. I really think he could have a new life, and we could see the John Gibson that we've seen early on in his career, where he was absolutely fantastic. And if that's true, I think the Detroit Red Wings make the playoffs this year. I'm saying that Detroit Red Wings, I'm putting them in a playoff spot this year. The number for them to make the playoffs is plus money. I don't know if I'm going to put money on it, but for all the reasons I just said, for the fact that they'll see a lot of backup goaltenders, that I think they could surprise a lot of teams if they play with the energy McClellan can get out of a team. They could do some damage this year, and I'm going to say that they do. All right, my friends, come check me out at the Ice Guys when I'm doing that show, and my new Puck in Deep podcast. You can catch me also at Pearlo's NHL POW, where eventually, a little thing inside, go to my community group, hit the community button there, and I'm going to be starting a pay for picks. I'll be giving free picks, don't get me wrong, but my premiums. And if you're part of the community, you're going to get a very, very, very good price. I mean, something that anybody can afford. And we made a ton of money on them last year. A ton. So get over there, Pearlo's NHL POW. Catch me on my next team that I'm into. Until then, 1 month away, my friends, and hockey is back.